What's up, friends? I'm Jonathan Miller, and welcome back to Jonathan Miller Music, where we help each other become better artists. The Tortured Poets Department, Taylor Swift's record-shattering 11th studio album, has already become the biggest debut of her career, doing so in mere days after the album dropped. It became the fastest album in history to pass 1 billion streams on Spotify globally. It broke the record for the biggest vinyl sales week of any album in Nielsen history, and this is only the beginning. If you're new to the series, today we're going through the album track by track, including the Anthology, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on its productions, lyrics, genres, and influences, and more to find out how this album breaks down and comes together. So hit the like button if you enjoy Taylor Swift and this video, subscribe so you don't miss my future uploads, leave a comment with your thoughts and favorite songs from the album, and with that out of the way, here's my album review and genre deconstruction of the Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. The album opens with Fortnight, a mid-tempo synth-pop and electropop track that pulls the listener into the 1800s meets modern-day grayscale aesthetic to introduce the vibe of the rest of the album. This song is not made to provide pop escapism, nor is it made to transport the listener to a made-up location with fantasy scenarios. This song is the opener and the first single because it showcases the setting of the album. A state of mind in a melancholy, dramatic, doomsday future post losing someone you loved. It's fatalistic. It's dramatic, like I said. This isn't teeny bopper pop. This isn't I'm changing genres to showcase my musical growth, straight up folk music. This is a grown woman writing about grown things, and she's setting the stage to basically say, if you don't relate to anything else on this record, you should probably consider yourself lucky that you've never had to go through any of these things. Fortnight properly establishes that this album is going to be unfiltered, is going to be raw, and truthfully, her most adult record to date. It's mid-tempo, and after listening to this album for well over a week now, I perfectly understand why it's the first single. I love Post Malone on this track. I love the music video, and for me, the song is a bop. In my Tortured Poets Department predictions video, I guessed that the album's title track would be a bit more upbeat than the first song, and I gotta say, I was definitely correct about that. I thought the song might be vulnerable about falling out of love with someone, and I was definitely wrong about that. To be a Swiftie is to be a clown. I really like the Tortured Poets Department song, even if I do see the similarities between it and Suburban Legends, for example. The productions are a little bit similar, some of the chords fit just right, and surprisingly, for a very somber album, this is one of the less somber songs on the record. And given how well she's played off of the lyrics and the aesthetic of the song, I think it works very well as a title track. It's a little bit electropop. It's definitely synth pop. The outro being the opening lines of the lyrics is a nice little touch. I'm personally not a huge fan of the fade out, but it's not distracting for me in this instance. Not gonna lie, it's been on repeat, like most of this album. I predicted this song would be an upbeat bop with a little bit of sarcasm, and I was largely correct. Of course, it wasn't as sarcastic as I thought it would be, but it's still most certainly a bop. Please make this a single, Taylor. Thank you very much. Sincerely, me. Down Bad is absolutely one of the highlights from the Tortured Poets Department. Its hook is incredibly strong, and then it gets even stronger when she adds lines like I lost my twin into it. That small but poignant addition continues a motif on this album that every single song is gonna have at least one lyric that hits and just elevates the whole thing. It's a mid-tempo mood. Who hasn't cried at the gym? It leans into R&B pop and was instantly one of my favorites. So Long London is absolutely one of my favorite track vibes from Taylor. When she's saying, I'm just mad as hell because I loved this place, there's so much emotion behind her voice. I cry every time and get chills. I completely disagree with anyone saying that this song should not be the track 5 of this record, or that other songs are better, like loml, for example. That is a beautiful song in its own right, which we'll talk about in a second, but if Taylor placed So Long London as track 5, it means something special to her. She's made that clear over the years. The chamber pop edition of the choir bells at the beginning, with her voice fading in and out and then jumping into chords that are just the same as the opening of Call It What You Want, it just is a magical, ethereal experience. This song is absolutely perfect. No notes. We got country Taylor again. That was an unexpected surprise, but a welcome one. Actually, there's a lot of country on this record. It's cheeky. It's dramatic. It breaks the fourth wall in a way. It feels new, but it's also reminiscent of Taylor Swift, Fearless, and Speak Now. It's absolutely hilarious. I feel Fresh Out the Slammer is a great track placement following But Daddy I Love Him. It starts with that guitar strum that instantly gives it a little bit of a Western vibe, but then it sort of leads into an alternative pop song whose hook fluctuates between Taylor's lower register and her falsetto. It's breathy and depicts a story about going back to somebody who wasn't good for you. It has beautiful chords that give it such richness. I really enjoy this one because even though it's, again, fatalistic in nature like Fortnight, there's an air of, I don't know how to describe it, like somber happiness to it. Like the protagonist knows that this person is not good for them, and that's why they first got out of the relationship, but they're also kind of reflecting on these moments of positivity in the relationship too, that keeps them addicted to wanting to go back to them. It's dramatically needy, but that's again kind of the point of the song. There's nuance in the undertones of the lyrics, and I really like that. Just like I like DistroKid. DistroKid is one of the top music distribution platforms online, helping independent artists like you and me get our music up on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon, and more. For one small yearly price, you'll be able to distribute as much music as you'd like. DistroKid's got 3 different membership tiers to suit your needs and budget, and depending on which one you choose, you'll also gain access to a wide selection of additional features. One such awesome tool you can use is called Dave. Dave is an analysis AI bot that analyzes your song to give you helpful information about it. Dave can give you a litany of keywords that can make it easier to describe your track to people and your fans. Dave can tell if your song is more acoustic or dancey. Dave can tell you your song's energy rating and detect if your song was recorded in a studio or not. It's a fairly simple and straightforward AI tool to use, but if you ever forget your beats per minute or key that your song is in, this can help you in a pinch. So use my special VIP link to save yourself 7% on your first year's membership with DistroKid. Link is in the description. Florida is made for stadiums. Whoever gets the first live performance of this song instantly wins. I don't know what you win, but you win. Florence sounds beautiful on this track and is literally the best possible feature for this song. Florida is about escapism. It's about running away to Florida where a multitude of weird things have happened to get away from your problems or the consequences of your own bad decisions. It's great. The production is solid. Like I said, I cannot wait to hear it live one day because I am certain it will be fantastic. I am so happy Taylor finally leaned into R&B a little bit more with this album. Country, rock, pop, R&B all sort of evolved from one another, and this pop R&B jam is so good. It just gets better with every listen. The post Malone edits are absolutely a vibe and hilarious. In my predictions video, I said this might appear to be sensual, but could actually be much deeper and mid-tempo. And again, it looks like I was largely correct. The song references the Blue Nile's 1989 song, because of course it was released in 1989, The Downtown Lights, and basically depicts Taylor as the protagonist, longing for someone in fantasy, regardless of what other people might say, and the protagonist considers taking action anyway, since people would be against it regardless. It's about autonomy and the ability to make your own decisions, good or bad, and of course accepting the consequences. It's really well done and catchy as hell, especially that moment right after the bridge when she goes up in the chorus melody. That hits perfection. Now, I've already done a 7-minute deep dive on this song specifically, and more will be coming, and you can watch that with the link in the description, so I don't want to take too much time here. However, not only was this song an instant favorite for me, it's also arguably one of the most important and poignant songs on the record. I would love to see it on tour. I would love to see it get a single treatment, because Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is nearly 20 years of pent-up hurt that Taylor has experienced over the course of her career in regards to impossible criticism of her. The music industry, the media, her personal relationships, and yes, a small subsection of her fans. She's held to this unrealistic, impossible standard. Yes, we can dive into parasocial relationships there, but this song isn't made to get people to feel bad for her necessarily, or feel like they need to apologize to her, because a vast majority of them probably wouldn't anyway, but it is, at some points, a literal scream of pain. Now, this might come across as a little callous, but I honestly don't understand how you can listen to the song and not get it. Unless English is not your first language, in which case I totally understand and you are off the hook here. But for me, she just knocked this song out of the water. Please watch my deep dive if you want to understand it a little bit more, because this song is incredible. One of the shorter songs on this album, this is another entry about being in love with somebody that we probably shouldn't be. It's again dramatic and extravagant. It's hyperbole to showcase a larger point about coming to the realization that some people are just terrible and you cannot fix them. People pleasers, you know what I'm talking about. This song hits, and in my opinion, it says all it needs to say. LOML is sad. It is a sad song. It's very introspective, but it's also very retrospective, like I predicted. But it's so much more than what I could have predicted as well. The chords of the song bring to mind White Horse and, of course, You're Losing Me. And these three songs coming together tells a much larger evolution of perspective in losing somebody that you believe is the one for you, but coming to the realization that they never were to begin with. Dancing phantoms on the terrace, are they secondhand embarrassed that I can't get out of bed because something counterfeit is dead, is a gut punch. It's heartbreaking, and I understand why people want this song as the track 5. I see your points, I really do, but I think that this song is strong enough to be its own track placement, because if it were to be track 5, I feel like it would carry an additional nuance that fans might read into in the wrong way that might be distracting from the story of LOML. Whereas So Long London is exactly what it needs to be about. It's right up there with All Too Well. LOML and So Long London serve different purposes for different nuances in heartbreak, and that's why they are placed where they are. LOML also is a nice ballad after I Can Fix Him No Really I Can and Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. We have anger, denial, and then depression. Like I said, this song is heartbreaking, but that's what makes it phenomenal as well. Ah, yes. The new Eras Tour anthem. This song is Taylor Swift cheeky at its finest. Not only is it a great meme with a great beat, but it's also got substance. It's not a song to try and get you to feel bad about attending the Eras Tour, although I think you can argue that it might be geared toward a very small subsection of ungrateful people in the fandom. Every fandom has them, but the song is honestly mostly about resilience. It's a crying on the floor electropop disco banger about being able to give your all to something in spite of how depressed you are inside because you're just that good. When you think about it, smiling through the pain is inherently a ridiculous concept that sometimes we just have to put ourselves through in certain situations. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is an empowering, miserable bop, and I love it. The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived is one of, if not the angriest song on the album. It's honest, it's brutal, and unrelenting, unfinished business. That outro section is rage. It's a deep hurt. It's betrayal. Taylor's trust as the protagonist in this song was deeply betrayed, and she's furiously crushed by it. You deserve prison, but you won't get time is so perfectly appropriate for a song of this emotion. I'm a writer and a songwriter, and I cannot even begin to describe how perfect that line is. The rhyme is cleverly crafted. It's perfectly placed melodically, and for me, it's honestly a standout moment on this entire album. It builds and cascades in production, but it also showcases how easy it is for Taylor to transition between her very impressive but deeply underrated vocal range. This song might not be like my #1 favorite from the album, but as a production and as a song and as a collection of lyrics, damn is it good. We have a Travis song. No, but speculations aside, at the end of the day, we don't know exactly who every song is about. And that again is part of the point. She blurs the lines onto who this song might be about and who it might not be about. We can make guesses, but at the end of the day, we are not Taylor Swift. We do not know for sure. But in regards to the Alchemy, it is one of the songs I ever played the most. It's probably, if not my favorite, it's one of my favorites. And that's because it is so simply an adult falling in love. It's a much needed dose of happiness on a very somber record. The Tortured Poets Department album is heavy, and this particular electropop, synthpop, and dream pop inspired track meshes very well sonically, but it also provides a little bit of relief to the listener. It's like a look to the future and the next chapter. And I've seen the argument that this should be the album closer, but I honestly would not place it anywhere else except track 15. It works better as the song next to the album closer and just after the angriest song on the album. Because oftentimes when you are going through the stages of grief, when you reach that final point of just unfiltered anger about whatever it is that you've been through, 9 times out of 10, that's a sign that you're getting over the hump. The Alchemy is purposefully a lift-in tone following the smallest man who ever lived, and a nice little peek at what the future might look like as we close out the album. It's happy, it's a tiny dose of cheese, but that's kind of what falling in love is as an adult. The Alchemy is another evolution in her perspective on the concept of love. Taylor previously expressed in Daylight that she previously learned, in spite of everything, love is always golden. The complexities of love are nuanced. They're not always gigantically passionate like Red. So in this song, why does she sing the alchemy when the word chemistry would work a lot better? And chemistry is so often used in songs. It's a big pop lyric trope about having a connection with someone. So why does she call this song the alchemy instead of the chemistry when chemistry would work just as fine? And that's really because alchemy is the process of turning something into gold. And in this case, love. It can be interpreted that she's saying after everything and in spite of it all, love, when it's with the right person, even if it doesn't end well, is still golden. And I, the hopeless romantic, absolutely love that. The standard album closer, Clara Bow, was another instant favorite for me. I've also done a deep dive on this song in particular, but the song Clara Bow is commentary on the cycle of how women are treated in the entertainment industry from an early age. Taylor doesn't name drop herself at the end of the song to like flex that she's the it girl like I've seen some people talk about. To be quite frank, if that's your takeaway from the song, you've missed the entire point of it. She name drops herself at the end of the song to showcase that in 100 years, nothing has changed. And you can replace nearly any female entertainer with all of the names in this song, and the whole function of the song does not change. But going back to where all of that cycle started with Clara Bow makes this song incredibly poignant. Now, in the context of the larger The Tortured Poets Department album, that centers itself around processing the consequences of our actions and the actions of those around us, no other song functions better as the album closer than Clara Bow. And I stand by that. The only exception to that is the Manuscript. And there's a reason it's the last song on the full-length record. But we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a reason this song is written as a series of quotes before we get to the bridge. I talk about that all in my deep dive. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. But this song is fantastic from start to finish. Moving on to the 2 a.m. surprise anthology section of the record, we have found ourselves at the Black Dog. Now, just so we are clear, this is called a double album. It is not TS11 and TS12. It is functionally a deluxe version of the Tortured Poets Department. Does that mean this is a collection of bonus tracks? No, because they are functionally part of the entire album. The lines that get blurred because of streaming, I tell you, make things so incredibly complicated to explain. But when we arrive at the anthology section of this album, you have to think albums like I Am Sasha Fierce or Back to Basics. They are two sides of the same coin functioning as an entire record. The difference with the Tortured Poets Department is that Taylor Swift very cleverly kept this half of the record and just laid Easter eggs about a double album for several years. Whether it was always planned to be a double album or not is always going to be debatable. And should she have included this double album on the physical editions of the vinyls and CDs is also going to be a hotly debated topic as well. But I just want to make it clear that this section of the album is still the Tortured Poets Department, Taylor Swift's 11th studio album. So now that we've established that, let's continue. The Black Dog, in a lot of ways, functions as a track 1, although for the purposes of this video, we're not going to call it track 1, but it does set the tone for a much more ballad-heavy section of the album. The Old Habits Die Screaming section of the song always gives me chills. It's a melancholy track about seeing somebody you love, taking the first steps to move on while you're still processing things. It's relatable. The ties to Daylight about missing breathing in the smoke is expertly done. Does this song somehow nullify the Alchemy? No. And that's again where we get into the context of what actually is a standard version of an album and what is a deluxe version of an album and what is a double album. If we think of the Black Dog as track 1 for the second CD of this album, it's just another piece of the grieving process. Grief is not a one-way street. Sometimes you jump back and forth between depression, anger, and all the other stages. But with the Black Dog in particular, I see why this was a featured variant bonus track, because it honestly is just so good. I'm Gonna Get You Back has one of the most addictive bridges on the Tortured Poets department. The beat is fantastic, it's cheeky, and another little funny, lighthearted moment on the album that a somber record really benefits from. It's catchy. Pick your poison, babe, I'm poison either way is a great summation statement of the song. I would absolutely love to hear this live one day as well. I can just see the crowd absolutely screaming their lungs out. It would be amazing. Another variant bonus track highlighted. Honestly, the aesthetic of the Albatross variant matches the song itself. The lyrics are basically a warning to someone who might date Taylor, and nothing highlights that like wise men once read fake news and they believed it. Again, we see Taylor processing the public's perception of her and her decisions, or lack thereof, and her life. At the end of the day, none of us know Taylor personally, so we can speculate all we want, but as much as we would love to be, none of us are her best friend having dinner with her on a Friday. So just because we don't know her doesn't also inherently mean she always has evil intentions as well, which is kind of what the Albatross is about. Waiting to see how this person's going to respond to what's being said about Taylor versus who Taylor actually is. It's a standout bonus track filled with quotes from other people, a technique that Taylor and many other pop stars have used several times. It's a pop trope, yes, using quotes from other people, but is it bad? No. It's a universal experience, especially if you've ever experienced rumors about yourself that you know aren't true. She nailed it, as expected. I cannot explain how folklore-coded this song is, but if you know, you know. It's a reminiscent song that's filled with hurt. It's about knowing why something ended, but also wondering what could have been, if it was on better terms. Like, the outro really says it all. The names in the title of the song are irrelevant. It's about that stage after a breakup when you, no pun intended, wonder if you will always be wondering if they're hurting just as much as you are. It's fragile. It might not be my favorite ballad on the record, but it's still beautiful regardless. Again, we're dealing with Taylor wrestling with the public's perception of her. She's examining and looking at something from the outside. She knows once her breakups go public, they will be overanalyzed for every single detail and all people will want to know, how did it end? Like, to be honest, she really hasn't said one thing about Joe, and nearly half of her fan base just instantly flipped on him without so much as a second thought, based purely on speculation from the lyrics within her songs. While yes, there can be some undeniable clues that she intentionally leaves because that's how she writes, at the end of the day, that's not what matters in the context of this song. The point she's posing in this song is about people's obsessive need to know how people's relationships end. It's that invasion of privacy. People forget to humanize people, especially those who are in the spotlight. We, honestly, do not know what happened between her and Joe. We can infer and guess, but truthfully, and this applies to every celebrity out there, we're not entitled to know either, which is actually a much larger point in regard to the Tortured Poets department, but we'll get to that later. So High School is such a 2000s coming of age movie song, I cannot even begin to describe it. It's so well done. I see why people love it, especially Taylor's older fan base. Truth, Dare, Spin, Bottles, You Know How to Ball, I Know Aristotle is another one of those lyrics on this record that just hits everything. It shines rhythmically, the rhyme is perfection, the melody is awesome. I mean, Touch Me Like Your Bros played Grand Theft Auto. Masterpiece. There's nothing wrong with this song at all. I Hate It Here is so relatable. It's about just wanting to be anywhere else instead of dealing with the problems that plague you, and I get that. It's also about more so dismantling the romanticism around nostalgia, because truthfully, anywhere or anytime you go to, there's always going to be problems. Regarding the 1830s lyric in particular, I am not black, remember, so my opinion doesn't matter as much on this. So I'll just say that I get what Taylor was intending with it, but I also understand why some people have had an issue with it, considering how brutal of a time period that was in history. Again, I can see the intentions and the context of the lyric, and I think most people can too, even the people who have an issue with it. Not speaking for anybody else, of course, but I just want to say that I do respect why some people felt that lyric was a little messy or could have been executed a little bit better. Taylor is a great writer, and sometimes she misses, and that's okay. It happens. We learn from each other, and that makes us better. This is an excellent way to deal with a bully that, for better or worse, had a profound effect on your life. It's clever. It's relatable. It's giving If You Seek aIMee. Whether it's about Kim Kardashian or one of Taylor's old bullies back in high school, we'll never know, but it's brilliant and I love it. I need a mashup of I Look in People's Windows and Death by a Thousand Cuts immediately. I love it. It's zany. It's hurt. It's a little bit delusional. It's everything it needs to be. Infant and Ink Pen is a brilliant rhyme. This song is for everyone who's never been loved before, not truly. It's about wanting to be with someone. That deep, innate human nature of wanting a companion. It's a little bit fearful, it deeply resonates with that revolving question of, am I destined to be alone? But I looked to the sky and said, please? Like, the girls that get it, get it. Okay, so we've got No Body, No Crime Part 2, right? I'm just kidding. Cassandra is an ever more coded track with minimal production and an emphasis on lyric and piano. Truthfully, this song is more like I Did Something Bad ballad version, if anything. Again, we've got Taylor speaking up about misogyny and its historical effect on women. In ancient Greece, Cassandra's fate was to be able to see future events but never be believed. So Taylor's drawing that comparison in parallel between Cassandra being cursed by Apollo and herself, yes, but women on a broader scale, never being believed, or more so, it's commentary on people's excitement to participate in the tearing down of women. But when the truth comes out, they just go quiet. They lose that excitement. The game is over. Something that Taylor knows, pun intended, all too well. More names. There are noticeable comparisons to this song and Cardigan with the whole Peter Pan inspiration, but really Peter is a ballad drilling home the same love loss that the album explores and kind of circles around. Melodically, it's more so like I Bet You Think About Me, but lyrically, much less angry. Again, it's another track that's beautiful from start to finish. The third bonus track, Highlight, features a country-tinged story about a young woman needing to get out of a relationship. For me, initially, this was the weakest of the variant bonus tracks, even though I still liked it. I think I initially viewed it as the weakest because it was the song that I couldn't remember the melody to, but as I sat with it more, I realized that that was only because at this point I was fatigued trying to process 31 brand new hard-hitting songs from Taylor Swift. This song is poignant. It's clever. Sure, there might be other songs on this album that I listen to more. I mean, everybody has favorites. The Bolter still belongs on this album. Again, track placement-wise, it's a nice lift in energy before the last two songs. So in my opinion, it's exactly where it needs to be. Robin shouldn't be ignored. It's a beautiful song about childhood innocence and protecting it in the vein of Never Grow Up. Story-wise, it's a track that offers something completely different from the rest of the album, and that's why I like it. It's the something else of the record, but it's still functional in the context of the record because it not only meshes melodically and production-wise, it's a much more adult perspective, even more adult than Never Grow Up was. Like I said, it's protective, it's sweet, and in my opinion, necessary. The Manuscript is a fantastic double album closer. I've seen the comparisons to the All Too Well music video about the novel at the end, and I see it. It's a look back on something or an event in your life that eventually sort of morphs into this motif that becomes recurring throughout your life as you go through it. I think we all have that moment in our life where we always kind of go back to it in a way. Maybe there's more perspective we gain from it as we get older, or our relationship to that moment specifically changes. And that's kind of what I interpret the manuscript to be about. All Too Well depicts an age gap relationship and a power dynamic, and in a way, so does the manuscript. The bridge in particular could be alluding to, and I'm projecting here, something like, in order for Taylor Swift to maybe move forward in her life, she ended up finding out that she also needed to revisit her eras, like we all kind of needed her to as well. Revisiting her old songs, thoughts, opinions, and ideas, I could see, again projecting here, could have given her more perspective on the way in which her life is now. Nostalgia does get romanticized, but sometimes it also provides clarity. Maybe going full force with All Too Well as sort of the single from Red Taylor's version gave her a whole bunch of personal clarity onto things that she was going through in her adult life, or what she's been going through as a woman in her 30s, where her fame has just gotten unbelievable in size. She's gone through it. She's reflected. We don't know what she's gone through truly, but I know when I listen to the manuscript, I can think about a couple very emotionally poignant moments in my life and realize that my relationship with those emotional moments in my life have changed as I've gotten older. So perhaps Taylor's gone through something as well in revisiting her old work. But like she says, the story isn't hers anymore. It's become greater than that, larger than her. This song, especially being the last song on the entire record, makes it abundantly clear that this collection of music is how Taylor Swift felt, not how she currently feels. The manuscript offers a look toward the future in the same way that the Alchemy does, except the perspective and vantage point of the song is different. The manuscript is a moment of clarity, which makes it a total wrap-up and a fantastic album closer to the Tortured Poets department. The Tortured Poets department features a wide range of genres and influences in order to tell a much greater, larger story. Not every song fits inside one tiny little box, and that's entirely on purpose. So here's how I'd break it down. I'd say its umbrella genre is pop. Pop is a very broad genre of music. It's a chameleon that can fuse with tons of other micro sounds and genres, but as always, we can go deeper. I'd put its micro niche as synth pop. It's not directly 80s synth pop like 1989, but it is a major sound design component on a lot of the songs. We could also realistically put electropop here, given its more electro-leaning style, but I think synth pop is a much better descriptor overall. I'd put its niche as folk pop. This might seem obvious, but Taylor's folk style storytelling through her lyrics is always going to be the centerpiece at the dining room table of her music, especially post-folklore, where dictionaries are required. Her ballads are folk-centered and country-centered, and they are stylized in sweeping pop styles, which is why I put folk pop here. But her micro niche is dream pop. Similarly to Midnight's, Taylor continues to place an emphasis on sonic texture to help tell her stories. There's space in the productions to showcase her lyrics, melody, and vocal range, giving us a pop album with heavy influences of R&B, country, and rock, utilizing predominantly synth pop and electropop production bases with dream pop sonic textures and atmospheres in conjunction with folk pop style songwriting formats to highlight its overarching message about coping with autonomy, the consequences of the actions of ourselves and those around us, while emphasizing its point about humanizing people in the spotlight, especially women. If you like synth pop but also love lyrical depth that provides a little bit of escapism, but mostly thought-provoking dialogue, then this album is for you. If you've gone through it before and know what grief truly feels like, regardless of what caused it, this album will speak to you. For me, the Tortured Poets department is Taylor Swift's most adult record. She's not a babysitter trying to keep everything PG or PG-13. This is Taylor at her most unfiltered, unrelenting, and honest in a way that many Swifties will be processing for a while. It's got pop confection, it's got gut-punching lyrics, it's so much to process because that's precisely what it's about. Processing. It's not an angry album, it's not a sad album, this is her grief album, and it's a fantastic one at that. So if you're on the hunt for an album that might help you cope with love loss, whatever form that might be, relationship or otherwise, grab a typewriter and enter the asylum known as the Tortured Poets department.